Canada and Fishtail faithful, we are back. After a really great run for Canada in the World Cup in our last season, and a league season that saw our club qualify for our first ever Europa League by winning the Taça de Portugal, we have our first ever crack at European football. So this is a really big opportunity to showcase some of our best Canadian talents as well as our homegrown players in European football. Let's get straight into Season 7. All right, everybody, Season 7 has already kicked off in this save, so we're going to do what we usually do. We're going to run through some of the transfers that happened over the summer window, look at the roster, and discuss plans for this season, as well as go over some of the starting games that have happened already. So let's get straight into the transfers to show you how we've improved the team, and more importantly, some of the players that we loaned out to different divisions of Portugal to develop while our first team plays in their first ever European season. I'm going to shake up the order just a little bit differently today. I'm going to go over the current squad, including some of the newer players, and then I'm going to go over all the transfers because I think that makes more sense with a club that doesn't do a ton of transfers each window. So we're going to stick with our classic 5-2-2-1 for this season. We obviously see these great green lines between players, so we want to keep that up. However, there is one interesting change to this back line that we are going to have to deal with this season. So, in terms of our attack, we are continuing with Osaze de Rosario as our leading striker. The 29-year-old veteran has enjoyed some pretty good seasons here in Portugal, coming off 14 goals in his first ever top division season. He is backed up by João Pedro, one of our new signings. He is a Guinea-Bissau player. However, he is actually from the São Miguel Island, born on Ponta Delgada, one of the municipalities on São Miguel where we actually play. He's going to be a backup. We wanted to bring him in as veteran leadership, joining one of our other veterans from last season. Behind them in the attacking midfield is two familiar favorites. Arthur Labelle, our inside forward / attacking midfielder from that left side who has been incredibly consistent over his years here. So I'm excited and have him play another top division season, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7.02 last year. He is next to veteran Simon Colin, our number 10, who is just very well balanced from a perspective of attributes, and I really enjoy him. Backing those two up are going to be Luca Weven, one of our most highest rated wonder kids. However, he is Ecuadorian Canadian, and he is leaning more towards the Ecuadorian side of things. So if he does decide to play for Ecuador, we'll probably move on from him. He is one of the created players that's allowed to be upgraded through watching the Twitch stream, so that's why he is so good, but he is going to be a key backup for us this season. As another key backup in that attacking midfield and striker role, we have Sean Jackson. He is from the Santa Clara Academy, so we signed him because he is from the São Miguel Island as well. He played very okay at Santa Clara, 21 appearances, 2 goals, 3 assists, played professional football for 2 straight seasons, and they were letting him go on a free. It's hard to say no to players like this when our restrictions are some São Miguel Island players and Canadians, so he is a perfect depth piece. It's really hard to find fully fleshed out players from the island that we're at a good age like this, so we have to scoop him up whenever we get the chance. Already has 3 goals to start this season, so happy with how he's been playing. In the defensive midfield, we are going with Sandro G. He is pretty versatile. He's an academy kid who's been here for a while, but this is going to be his first season truly starting in that DM role. I'm not sure if he fits that role perfectly, but I want to get him to playing time. But we do have a backup who's going to be pushing him a good amount, and that is Yannick Schultz-Tremblay, a guy who has flip-flopped from being our starting 8 and our backup 8 through many seasons. He's been here since 2026, originally from the Toronto FC Academy, and enjoyed a couple loans, but I think he is just right there. He needs to show why he's better than Sandro G in order to take that starting spot. Next to him is Bruno Carajola, long-term standing homegrown academy kid in that 6th spot. I love this guy. He is so consistent. He's kind of like the defensive midfield version of Simon Colin, so I want to continue playing him in that role. And then for further depth in that DM position, we have Matthew Chonieri, who enjoyed his first season in Europe last year, 28 appearances, 17 starts, 11 off the bench. A little bit of a slow start this season, but really why we like him is less for the average rating and more for the positional versatility that we can put him in. We're probably not going to see him starting a lot unless there's some tired legs or some deep injuries, but moving to the wingback spots, it gets a little interesting. Guy, who had a excellent second half of the season loan last year at Trofense, mostly playing attacking midfield and wing, is going to be covering at left wing back for us. We play wing backs that are super offensive, so they're basically outside wingers. I'm excited to use him. I want to get him on the field, and it's a little bit crowded in the attacking midfield, so I want to play him at that left wing back spot this year, and I'm excited to do it. So we'll see if he can hold down that spot. He's going to be probably like the very good version of Matthew Chonieri in terms of positional versatility. Plug him wherever we can play him, but we are going to be leaning towards using him more often than not as opposed to Chonieri. On the opposite side is our long-term captain, Helder Frutuoso, who's been locking down that right wing-back spot for a while. Depending on what other wingbacks we have. Sometimes he plays left, sometimes he plays right. This season, most likely right. Backing them up, though, is going to be Marcus Gomez, a player who enjoyed a really, really good season last year when Frutuoso played more on the left. He led the team in assists with 10 on the right side. I feel like that's a bit of an outlier season, so I'm not trusting that. I like him as a backup who can play both wingback spots, so we're going to keep him that way. And then we can move on to our center backs. My love of this team, I love 3 center backs. That's why I always love playing 5 at the back. I might switch it in upcoming seasons just to give a little bit of a different look towards opponents, but this is what we have for this season, and it's a consistent one from last season. We have Dave Terr, the left-sided center back who has 21 caps for Canada, played a key role in that Canadian World Cup. Very, very good player, 16th strength. I think he's capped out in terms of potential, but as long as he wants to play here, I will keep him here. Next to him in the middle is our most veteran player from the São Miguel Island, who we signed back in 2027. It doesn't feel like we've had him for this long, and he's risen through the ranks with us, 3-2-1. But very, very consistent center back. And then on the right of him is Alex Murray, long-term starter, finally kind of took over that starting spot fully last season and has really not let go of it. So I'm super, super excited to have this guy back. And then backing them up is Noah Abotne. He's kind of the center back, wingback Matthew Chonieri squad player. I absolutely love this guy. He can play any position along the back, and usually when he plays it, he can play it well, and he can even slide in at DM, which I really enjoy. This guy can play every defensive position that we need, and he doesn't ask for a big wage. He likes that playing time. Every team needs a guy like this. And then finally, one that is super, super interesting. Luke West was one of our highest valued wonder kid, relative to Canada. And this save that we got from Alliance United. Really came into his own, starting 10 games and backing up 8 this season. Juventus, at the end of this window, came in and did a $7.75 million deal on him. We get 20% of next sale, and we can arrange a friendly, but they're going to allow him to be loaned here for the rest of the season. Juventus see him as a key prospect that they may be able to develop for a good price, and you already see his value growing again. So very, very interesting trajectory for Luke West. Wasn't what I was expecting, but financially, I think it makes sense for what this club is and how we are trying to improve. So that's kind of the whole first team. We have a few loans that I'll show you, and as well as some younger players that we brought into the academy and transfers. We brought in a couple of guys from Santa Clara. Graham Clark is a youth player, DM, that we got for 80K that could rise to 130K. High potential 16-year-old midfielder. I want him to develop here in our academy since Santa Clara has kind of degraded as a team and we have improved. We also brought in Afonso Placido, another player that had high potential for about 10K. Like I said, if you see some good players from the São Miguel Island due to our restrictions, we got to scoop them up. We also brought in Tony Yeboah. This one I'm very excited about. He's going to take some time to kind of cook and, develop, but he was killing it in the U19 semi-pro amateur divisions of Portugal. We got him for a free. His analytics looked really good. Good 10, Canadian Portuguese, can develop in the academy as well. Another player that we grabbed was a good player from Lusitano Soros B, another team from our region. He is going to develop on the B team. We also brought in another Santa Clara DM, David Graham. This one on a free, and he's a year older than Graham Clark, which is funny. They both have Graham in their name. I'm excited to see what he turns into. Not sure how good he will end up being. The cool thing is he's Portuguese, Canadian, and from the island, so I figured that's a perfect combo of what we want to grab in a player. And as for the transfers out, we already talked about Luke West over here. But we did sell depth piece left wing back Lino Aklel, who did get a Canadian cap while under us. I feel like he kind of reached his max potential of what we could do with him, and I wanted to give some younger guys a chance, so I sold him to a lower division of Portugal. Steven Rojas was a Canadian dual national that we took from Valencia when they let him go on a free. We developed him for a couple of years and sold him to Firenze for 130K, so decent business right there. And then Thomas Gomez, a goalkeeper from our youth team who wasn't going to have a future with us, we let him go to Salgueiras B on a free. And then in terms of loans, we did a lot. Jamie Clark, a prospective backup striker, is on loan at Pacos de Ferreira. Moises Bombito, our depth piece center back, is at loan at Morense. Lucas Peelman, a Belgian-Canadian dual national, has been loaned back to Belgium. Jair, a Brazilian from our academy, has been loaned to Penafiel. Kevin De Bruyne, and obviously renamed from our chat player, has been loaned to Terrense, and a number of other young players from our academy who weren't going to get a ton of playing time due to how big our roster is are on loan at some of our lower tiered affiliate clubs like Lusitania Açores and UD Mecalense. So let's go into some of the games. We started off against Porto in the Super Cup, basically the winners of the Cup and the league play, and we were able to take them down 3-1, but it wasn't just any normal 3-1. We were kind of having a pretty even, slow-paced game throughout the entire thing. They got a Giovanni Reina goal in the 46th minute, but Arthur Labale scored a hat trick in, how many minutes would that be? A little under 20 minutes to win the game 3-1. So let's run through these goals. It was honestly incredible. Up until this point, the game was relatively even, and Porto have a much better roster than us. Reina able to take a goal in right before half, which you usually hate as a manager, but the Arthur Labale show showed. And you know, early in seasons, right when all the friendlies end, not everyone is sharp, so their defense could have been a little, lackluster, but Arthur Labale's first goal was an absolute rocket into the top right. Our second one, João Pedro, our new backup striker, not the Brighton Chelsea man, puts in a great assist into Labale. We're up 2-1, and then we get a dagger goal in the 95th minute. Sandro G back to Abotne looking for options, back to Frutuoso, who gets a cross, takes a weird deflection, and Labale goes near post to put them to bed 3-1. Very surprising result for us, not what I was expecting at all. I wasn't expecting much. This is kind of like one of those whatever cups that you get when you do well in the last season and you just hope for the best. And we hoped enough, and we got a 3-1 victory. Porto would get a little bit of revenge on us. 1-1 tie in our season opener. Funny to play them twice in 3 days. That kind of spurred on a little bit of a losing streak here. 2 games in a row. 2-1 loss to Alverca, which I thought was pretty disappointing. They FM'd the ever-living shit out of us. Pretty brutal. We had 18 shots, 8 on target. Max Anchor still had a 6.9, but I think we just let in some pretty good goals for Alverca. I mean, it was 0.99 XG from 4 shots, so that is very, very solid, and they got 2 in. But, it was disappointing because we let in an early goal here. Luis Barroso down the right side. Great cross. No one covers Antolin. I mean, not much Max Anchor can do. The defensive line needs to be better. We waited till very late into the game to kind of get back into it and tie it in the 79th. And Sean Jackson, one of his 2 goals on the season so far. Nicely played, good finish. But right after that, 3 minutes later, off a corner that was rebounded, Sousa back to Antolin, kind of like that Labale goal that we saw. Just a great goal. I mean, we would then go on to lose 4-1, which would be tied for one of our worst losses of the season so far. Depu and Leonardo Santos taking us down. Yeah, pretty brutal. Even game as well. Again, just a bad performance. Max Anchor with a 5.9. That's pretty bad. However, we would rally back with 2 straight wins, 3-0 against Portimonense. Labale gets back on the scoring table, and against Aruca, a nice 4-1. However, we then go on to lose against Vizela 4-1. So defensively, we've been a little bit shaky. We've had some good games. We've had some bad ones. But at the end of the day, this team is relatively mid-table. In terms of the season preview, they're expecting us to be 15th. Again, we don't make a ton of roster improvements each season due to the restrictions that we have. We're a development-style club, so it makes sense we're low on the season preview. This is kind of the area I always expect us to be in, 7th through 11th, with hopefully a good season being able to push into that top 6. So all right, halfway point check-in. We started in 9th in the first one, and we've pretty much stayed about the same. 10th place team so far in the season, 19 games played, so maybe we're a little higher than that. 7 wins, 5 draws, 7 losses, 32 goals for, 29 against for a 3-goal difference. We could not be more mid-table if we tried to, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of what this team is, so it's to be expected. So let me show you some of the moves that we have made, and then we can go through some of the individual games because there's some interesting new players that have popped up. So if we head over to the tactics, the first thing you'll see a De Rosario, but it's not the De Rosario that you think. One of our chatters, Bizarre Brigade, friend of the channel, great guy, created a player in our Discord, basically renaming one of our academy strikers who was a really incredible prospect, boosting him up a little bit, and now we have Oliberto De Rosario, a 16-year-old who is technically my coach's son, Theo De Rosario, the cousin of Osaze De Rosario, and he has hit the league with a storm. 7 goals in 9 appearances across all competitions. And really the reason we needed to get this guy involved was two-pronged. Osaze de Rosario suffered a hip injury on December 27th, and he's still projected to be out for an additional 3 to 7 weeks. So we tried to find a backup striker on our roster, and that guy was supposed to be João Pedro. But João Pedro did not work out for us at all. Didn't score a single goal in the league. 6.46, scored 1 continental goal in Europa League, but was just eating up a wage and was just not happy here. So we let him go back to Greece on a free just to get his wage off. So Oliberto de Rosario is our 9 for the time being, and he is showing why he's such a good player. Behind him, Arthur LaBelle has 12 goals and 2 assists on the season. You can see over there. We've kind of flexed him into a trequartista role for sometimes. I'm enjoying that role. Sometimes he plays attacking midfielder, but I really like it. Next to him, Colin, consistent as always, 5 goals and 3 assists. Guy and Frutuoso holding down the wingback spots, and Frutuoso is an absolute heater. 14 assists, 10 of those coming from the right side, playing the wingback spot. Marcus Gomez last season had a 10 assists from the same spot, but our captain, a much better player, has 14 through the halfway point. So I'm really curious to see how far he gets up those leaderboards for assists. On the left side, we have Guy, who's played a number of different positions this season. Like we said, 17 games at wingback left, 11 games at attacking midfield, and 2 games at wingback right. Incredible player who's become such a key piece to this team and got his first 2 Canada caps as well. So we'll go over some of the Canada stuff too. In the midfield, Yannick Schultz-Tremblay has taken the spot of Sandro G in the midfield, which I think makes a lot of sense. Sandro G, I think, is more of an out-and-out 10. So we're just kind of going to wait for, players to kind of move on and eventually he can go into that spot, or maybe we just might have to move on from him in the future. In the back line, you'll notice one player is missing. Dave Terr has been sold, and I'll show you where he has gone. He decided he wanted to move to a club that was going to be willing to pay him 10 times his wage. Might be in a different continent. We'll have to see. But Henrique and Murray are still next to him with Max Anchor in between the sticks. And in regards to bench players, there have been a few that have kind of popped up more recently. Diego Años was a B-team left wing-back who had been playing pretty good, and we needed another depth piece at the wing-back spot for Guy to play in different spots. He's been pretty terrible in Europa League with a 6.33 average rating. In the league, he's putting up a 6.96 rating, and he's a good depth piece. And then Johnny Roscoe has kind of been a random one we pulled up. We needed some more DM depth in terms of a good tackler and a high aggression type player. He's shown on the B team, he's been pretty resilient, pretty consistent, so we decided to bring him up, and he's been pretty solid for us. And then finally, that means Noah Botnay is now our starting left side center back for this rest of the season, since we don't really have a guy we trust as of yet, and this is exactly what you have a squad player like this for. So let me show you the move that made Dave Terr go. He went to Shanghai Shenhua. Again, he was pretty capped out in terms of his potential and current ability, and he was making about $150,000 here. He literally 10x'd his salary, so I cannot blame the guy for leaving the team. He's going to continue to get capped despite playing in China, because there was another player that we sold to China, and he continued to play. Dave Terr is a very, very solid center back. We're sad to see him go, but he was very serviceable for 4 seasons, and one of those seasons where he really made his debut in the Canadian national team is when he was on loan in League 3. So he went on loan for League 3, then played for us for 1.5 seasons in First Division, and now he gets a huge paycheck as a result. So what I'll do before we kind of go over some of the league games, I want to show you how some of the Canadian call-ups have kind of been happening. So in the last call-up, I'll show you in terms of what this Canada Build a Nation means to me and kind of what we're trying to build here. I want players from my team or players that I've developed from my team to make the Canadian national team roster. So if we look at the active roster from their last call-up, Max Anchor, our current goalkeeper, is there and is the starter. Ali Ebrahimi, one of our former center backs, playing now for Almere City. Alex Murray, our current center back. Luke West, a former center back, but still on the roster for this season because he is on loan from Juventus. Lino Aklo, who got his first few caps, former player. Dave Terr, now a former player. Matthias Sampao, a former player that was sold to Aston Villa but is on loan at St. Mirren this season. Guy, who's starting to get into the Canadian system because of his good form this season, a current player. And I know this guy isn't one of our former players, but this one is so interesting. A cool thing about the MLS and how they acclimate players to Canada is when players play long enough in Canada, usually 3 years, they can naturalize. And Daibar Caicedo, an incredible Colombian talent for the MLS, He scored 2 goals against Portugal in the World Cup, but it's so cool to see a player like this play for Canada now. And these are the type of players maybe we can sign in the future if they naturalize a little bit younger and they're looking for an opportunity in Europe. Depending on his natural fitness, he could be a target for us in the future. And in terms of how those games went and why we were kind of paying attention to those caps, the Nation League has started again. In the quarterfinal, Canada was able to take down Suriname, and Alex Murray was actually able to score his first ever goal for Canada. So we'll take a look at that. Really good set piece guy, our right side center back. It was a bit of a deflection, but we will take that at the end of the day. So fun to see some of our players score their first ever goals. And as for our club performances, very up and down, very inconsistent. I think that makes sense for a mid-table team, but this is what we're looking like. In our first ever Europa League game, bit of a snooze fest, 0-0 to Motherwell away. So an away Europa League debut, we'll take a tie. I can't be too mad about that. We played our backup keeper, Bernardo Resende. He put up a 7.6, so I'm very happy with him. He's been playing a lot more than he has in the past, especially with the added-on games to the schedule, so I'm happy to see him thriving in that. And I honestly see him as our future starter if Max Anchor were to ever leave, but Anchor is kind of in the development prime of a goalkeeper, like 26 to 28 years old. We would follow up that Europa League tie with a 2-0 win against Lexosis, where Osaze de Rosario would get a brace. And then this is where we kind of got humbled for the first time. We kind of saw our place in the Europa League and European ecosystem. Stuttgart, a top Bundesliga team, took us down 5-2. Adam Holzek, who I really like in Football Manager, scored a hat trick on us. Carson Fecker with another goal. João Pedro scored a pen for his only goal being here, and our only other goal was an own goal. We still produced 1.57 worth of XG, but defensively we were pretty shit. Bernardo Resende with a 6.0, that was tough. The whole defense just couldn't handle this Stuttgart attack. So yeah, humbled a bit. We would then follow up with a loss against Trofense, but we get our first ever league goal for another renamed New Gen. First ever league goal for him, that was pretty cool. He just got this deflection interception from Jackson, just banged one home. Unfortunately, it would still lead to a loss. In the next game of the Alliance Cup, Luca Webben would take down Vizela 1-0. In our next game, 3-2 league game, unfortunately, Vitória de Guimarães would take us down in the 91st minute. Brutal scenes, a pretty even game. But that's what I kind of like about this save. I feel like a lot of the games are very even and competitive, so it kind of keeps you engaged no matter who you're playing against. But yeah, John Victor Makengo, 91st minute goal to take us down away from home. Makengo just unmarked there and just puts it far post. Anchor dives fully. He was guarding the near post, so you can't blame the guy too much. You probably got to mark someone a little bit better. So unfortunate loss there. We then followed it up with a win in the Taça de Portugal against AVS SAD, where one of our former players plays, Lino Aklil, 2-0, and then a 2-1 win against Fenerbahce, Turkish, I would say giants. I mean, they're one of the biggest teams in Turkey, so this was kind of cool. Following a loss against Stuttgart, we're able to take down a team like Fenerbahce, and I might be mispronouncing that, but that is the American to me, and I apologize. But Guy here, nice little 1-2 with Osaze de Rosario, goes far post on Altay Bendir, the former Man United keeper. They would answer back right before half from a corner that was deflected a little bit. This was a really nice shot, to be honest. Weird deflection through all of the mess. Unfortunately, it didn't get saved. But on our second goal, Guy would intercept it, come down the left wing, get a really incredible ball in, whipped cross, and Colin hits it hard. Doesn't really have to do much, just has to redirect it. And it's a 2-1 win. Again, another very even game, which I enjoy. Sporting CP, which I think is a great result, 0-0. 3-1 against Boavista, Simon Colin with another brace. Europa League loss against Antwerp 2-0, and then we'd follow that up with a league loss against Famalicão 1-0. But we'd go on a really great run of form here. In the Taça de Portugal, 3-2 win, a 4-2 win against Sheriff Tiraspol, 4-2 in the Europa League phase. Firenze 1-1 tie, a team we definitely should have been beating. A 4-2 win against Rio Ave. A 5-1 win against Legia Warsaw. And this 3-1 win in the Alliance Cup was absolutely incredible. 2 late goals for Yannick Schultz-Tremblay, so we'll watch a little bit of it. I really couldn't believe this watching this live on stream. I love when a Segunda Volante, an 8-style role, just comes blitzing into the box late. And he did that twice in the dying breaths of this game. It was absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, that's how we tied the game. We had kind of been holding on to the ball for a long time, trying to win 1-0. But Yannick Schultz-Tremblay, an absolute hero. This is how you become a cult hero for a team. Colin finds him, late run, bang. Ferreira gets fingertips to it, but it's not enough. And then here, Webben, with Schultz-Tremblay, again, of deflection, and we are able to win 3-1 and move forward in the Alliance Cup. And following that Benfica game, we would play Braga on the 28th of December. On the 27th is when Osaze de Rosario would get his injury, and Oliberto would be thrust in to the starting spot. Oh, no, he didn't start. He came in at halftime and scored a game-winning goal. What would prove to be a game-winning goal in the 52nd minute. His first ever professional goal. And look at this, just great run, gets it near post. Defense could have probably done enough, but maybe they just wanted to see the 16-year-old score. Probably not. Great goal in his debut. We'd follow that up with a terrible showing, 5-0 against Benfica away, losing. They got the revenge on us for that Alliance Cup knockout, but we'd go on to the next cup, the Taça de Portugal 5th round, 1-0 against Rio Ave, 1-1 against Casa Pia in the league, a 5-0 one against Gil Vicente in the league. Gil Vicente. Oliberto de Rosario would score another one, and then Porto, Oliberto de Rosario with another goal against top competition, 1-1 against Porto, and he was able to score in the 28th minute to kind of get the game going. The fact that he shows up in big games like this at such a young age is really exciting. I definitely see him as the striker of the future. He is leaning more towards Portugal, playing for them because of his nationality, but that is okay. He is from the islands. He is related to our coach. Whatever country he decides to play for, that was an incredible goal also by Duarte. A little floater over Anchor's head. But yeah, excited for the young guy. 3 goals so far as we go through these highlights. We would then go against Inter Milan in the Europa League. I'm surprised we didn't lose by more because Stuttgart kind of gave us our worst Europa League loss, but a 2-0 to them, and then we'd finish up this stretch of games with an Alliance Cup semifinal win against Rio Ave. Oliberto de Rosario with a brace. Awesome. And then in the Europa League phase, a 3-1 win against Westerlo. Oliberto de Rosario with another brace. So, absolute scenes. The kid is cooking. Let's see how we finish off the rest of the season because there is a lot of exciting things to be seen. We'll see if we can make something happen in one of the cups. A lot to be seen. I'll see you in just a moment. So the season is finished. And if you see on this screen, Oliberto de Rosario finished it as our top goal scorer. Helder Frutuoso with the highest average rating, really because of those assists. 19 assists and 8 player of the matches. What a dog. But you might not be happy to see how things ended. So let's go through it. We stopped in February. The last game was the Westerlo game, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the Westerlo game. So February 1st, we come back into the league. Casa Pia, look at the green. Just let's enjoy the green for a moment before we get down to the red to finish off the season. Casa Pia, 1-0 win. Marcus Gomez, the backup right back, scores a game winner in the 68th. In the Taça de Portugal 6th round, it would take us getting into extra time to win this game. 3 goals in extra time. Sean Jackson, Oliberto de Rosario, and Luca Webben with goals. We again go on to win in the league 2-1. And then against Red Star in the Europa League phase, we got a nice 1-0. Vizela, 2-1 win. And in the second leg, so we were fortunate enough to get into the knockout stage against Red Star and get a relatively even matchup. We took him out 5-1. So that was an incredible display. 1-0 away was great. But, being able to knock him out and go into the next round, 5-1, was really awesome as well. Unfortunately, we'd follow up those 2 games with a loss against Lexosos, a team we're definitely better than, 3-2. And then in the Alliance Cup final, we lost on pens. Porto took us out, unfortunately. It was a really good showing for us to even get them to that position. But the crazy thing is, we had a chance in normal time. Paulo Henrique in the 6th minute missed his penalty. Oh, so disappointing. We could have been trying to hold on to a lead instead of chasing the game the entire time, trying to find something. But, however, we'd knock out some of that bad taste with a 5-0 win against Trofense, but this is when things kind of started going downhill. We had FC Cologne in the round of 16. In our first game at home, it was a 0-0 tie. In the semi-final of the Cup, oh my god, this is crazy. This team, Lusitania La Russa, we had in the semifinal of the Taça de Portugal. The 4 teams left were 2 second division teams and a third division team, and we got one of the second division teams. We tied them 1-1 at home, and then in the second leg, in a week and a half later, 2-0 we lost away. And a second division team knocked us out in a cup where we were definitely the favorites to win. Would have secured us another European journey next season, which I don't think we're going to be having once we kind of go through the rest of these games. But in between that, FC Cologne in the second leg of the Europa League took us out 1-0. So we were bounced from the Europa League round of 16 by a 116th minute goal. Pretty even throughout the whole thing. Neither team could find an opening, but FC Cologne was able to score a goal when it mattered. Nice over-the-top ball, near post finish. I mean, eventually a team is going to score, barely on sides, and they take us out. We're knocked out of two really big we're knocked out of all three competitions that we're in a little less than 30 days. So that was brutal. We then, in between that, lose to Vitória de Guimarães 1-0, and then to round out March, a 2-0 loss to Sporting CP. April was a little bit better for us, 4-1 win against Boa Vista, 2-1 win against Portimonense, and then a 3-1 loss to Famalicão, where John Duran, who is one of the best strikers in the division now, I love this guy, got us with a goal. 2-2 tie against Alverca, 1-1 tie against Firenze, a 1-0 win against Rio Ave, and then we finish off the season 4-1 loss to Braga and a 1-1 tie to Benfica. So not the ending that we wanted to have, unfortunately, but it's kind of just where we're at with this team. We go into this next season, no Europe next season, unfortunately. We finish 8th place, 14 wins, 8 draws, 12 losses, 57 for, 50 against, 7 goal difference. In terms of goals for, 8th best. In terms of goals against, right in the mid-table spot. So I feel like an 8th place mid-table finish makes sense for us. I think it's fair, but it kind of puts something on us for next season to try and push towards a better finish next year. We want to get back into Europe, but we're probably going to have to let go of some players and get rid of some wages just because we're not in Europe next season. And it doesn't make sense to have that much of an investment in players if we're not going to be in Europe. So let me go through some of the ending stats for our players, and then we can wrap up season 7 fully. So in terms of how the season ended, a lot of the players that kind of were highlighted at the start were the guys that were playing for a good portion of this season. The top 3 players are all Portuguese from the island. Bruno Carajola with 46 appearances, Helder Frutuoso with 50, and Paulo Henrique with 44. All great seasons for them. Again, Helder Frutuoso with that huge 19 assists and 6 goals from the right wingback spot is pretty impressive as well. You then follow it up with another one of our center backs, Alex Murray, who had another great season, and Max Anchor in between the sticks. I do love Max Anchor as a keeper, and he's probably the best that we can get with the restrictions that we have in this save, but he is a little bit inconsistent at times and can cost us games, so that is a little frustrating, but that's kind of what you get for a goalkeeper at this level. Yannick Schultz-Tremblay really took the reins of that starting Volante spot, so I'm proud of him to be able to do that at 23. He's kind of pushed Sandro G down in the depth chart now. Noah Botnay is a great squad playing player, and one interesting one is Guy decided he wanted to move on, and he is joining recently relegated to the championship Burnley on a new deal. So that is very interesting to see. We will not have Guy next season after an incredible season here in Portugal. 2 goals, 8 assists, 1 player of the match. He's probably going to be starting at either the left or right wing spot there, but I think it's a nice challenge for him. Possibly could make him into a Premier League player if he helps Burnley go straight back up. Behind him, Arthur Labelle and Simon Colin are 210s, pitched in 22 goals and 5 assists combined. So from that spot, that was really, really incredible. I loved what we saw out of those guys. Osaze de Rosario, despite his injury, was still able to pitch in 10 goals across 29 appearances. A little bit underwhelming, but again, at the end of the day, he had a pretty bad hip injury, so it was hard for him to find that consistency. He didn't come back until almost the end of the season when he did get his injury in December, so can't really complain too much. 1 more year left on his contract. We'll see how he does, and then we'll make a decision for 2033. And then some interesting ones as well. Matthew Chonieri is deciding to leave as well. He is headed to Cor Facon on 6/11/2031. We're able to make a little bit of money off of him. Yeah, he's going to the United Arab Emirates on $450,000, almost $500,000 for a free player. Good squad player, but you can't really say no to something like that. Some other players that I love this season, again, Oliberto de Rosario, 14 goals and 29 appearances. I think he goes into season 8 as our kind of starter, pushing Osaze de Rosario. Depends how that preseason goes, but that's what makes the most sense to me. And some other guys to look out for next season. Luca Webben was a key backup. With the departure of Guy, he probably gets a little bit more playing time as well, but he already played a lot, 42 times last season as kind of a backup starter attacking midfielder. he probably takes Arthur LaBale or Simon Colin's spot next year, but we might be switching into a 4-2-3-1. So watch out for that to get in another wing style player, especially because we are losing Paulo Henrique to retirement. So we lose Luke West, we lost Dave Terr, and we lost Paulo Henrique. So that's 3 center backs. Is 3 at the back really sustainable for next season? I don't think so. We're going to move into a 4-2-3-1, allow some of our highly rated prospects at the attacking midfield and wing spots to play a little bit more. And finally, what I'm excited to show you is probably the best youth intake we've had so far. We had a really great one last year, getting players like Keenan Dom and Isaac G in, 2 guys that I see as long-term starters at the club once they develop. But we just found 2 more guys, 2 Spanish nationality players coming through our academy. I think Diego Cabeza is the right back of the future, or left back, depending on how long Felder Frutuoso stays. He is an incredible, incredible prospect. What I'm thinking for next season is play him on the B team and see how he does, and probably call him up halfway through the season when we need some more depth, or depending on how the other players are doing. There's no other right back on this roster that has this much potential at this age, so I am very excited for him. And then next to him is his Spanish bro, Diego, at the center back spot. A little less to kind of point your hand at and say, hey, I'm excited for him right now, but for the future, looks like an incredible prospect, either-footed center back with great decisions and pretty good pace at 6'2" and 13 marking. So excited for a player like that. And again, like I mentioned, he joins players like Ross Denholm, who's a really exciting prospect, Graham Clark, a player that we mentioned at the start of this video, Keenan Dom, the incredible left wing who I want to see play a little bit next season, whether on loan or on the B team more. And Isaac G, a great, great left back. I could see Isaac G and Diego Cabeza being our left back and right back, in 5 years as key players. And this guy, I think he's going to be a cult favorite. 5'2" attacking midfielder, cut Rosino. So those are some of the exciting prospects for next season. We're going to have to build a very different team for Season 8 because we are not in Europe. And I think it's going to be more of a developmental team. Things might start a little bit slower, but I'm excited for the journey. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. That is Season 7 of the Canada Build a Nation. We're playing Season 8 and we're almost done with it. Live on stream right now, so that video will be coming out soon as well. I know this is a little bit different from my topic videos. I want to make these videos for people who can't catch the streams and just to document these entire seasons. So I hope you guys like that. Check out the streams at twitch.tv/Dill40k. And then, yeah, look out for some new content here on the YouTube as well. I appreciate you guys as always, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.